Folks, we have got 29 holes for 29 souls, and we're going to be talking about that on episode 177 of Byte. That's Weekly Wrestling Podcast. Thank you for checking out the show. Remember, we are available every single Wednesday night. We talk about Raw, Smackdown Live, pay-per-view predictions, and this week, I'm going to be talking a little bit about Wrestle Kingdom because, yes, I watched it. I got New Japan World. Unfortunately, Keith is not here, so for those that were expecting the Keith train to be here, he saw the match. He saw the apparently 6-star rated match, arguably the greatest match of all time. Was it my greatest match of all time? Find out in the second half of the show. But remember, if you enjoy the show, there are many different ways you can support us. Number one, subscribe and rate. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes. You can also go to patreon.com/bythethat. You can pledge for as little as $1. You get exclusive behind-the-scenes updates. We actually put out an update this past Monday. You also get a raw and uncut video version of the podcast that goes up on YouTube just before everywhere else. So you can enjoy that, and you can have a better conversation with us and help us grow faster, stronger, and Super Saiyan levels of awesome every single week. My name is Juan Velez. I am from the Shining Star of the Caribbean, and with me from Boston, Mass., the man that freaked out because this podcast episode was almost canceled. It was on the verge of happening. We got Ryan
It would not
McNulty.
be canceled. We would not cancel the show, but Keith, with work obligations, wasn't able to be here today. One, I guess you're having some, is it like just the weather and power outages or something?
Yeah, the weather's been pretty bad here. It almost felt like a hurricane. I actually had 2 hours without electricity last night, and the lights went out a couple times here today, so I was very concerned about that. Luckily, it's not raining right now, but in case it does, my apologies, but I can't control the weather, so ideally I would love to. How's the weather for you guys? Because for me, it's now January, but I know you guys sometimes have it worse when it comes to snow and all that later on.
Yeah, generally late January and February is the worst of the snow, but New England continues to do New England things where we got hit with a ton of snow last Friday and Saturday, and now it's 50-something degrees out. I think
insane.
It hit a high of 61 degrees here. So all that snow is pretty much melted, which is awesome.
Okay, so now luckily I'm assuming traffic's going to get a lot better, more comfortable. You can not take 5 hours to get home.
Yeah, no, I mean, as long as it's not snowing, the drive isn't too bad because they're good about getting it off the roads. But it's only driving during, snow is when it gets really bad.
Well, for everybody listening, hopefully your weather's doing better because, remember, I'm in the Caribbean, so ultimately it's basically the same weather for me throughout all of the year. But we did watch Raw and SmackDown this week. We're on the road to the Rumble. We have more people that we found out are in the Rumble. I was very surprised. I don't know if you expected this, Ryan. This is a spoiler for those that don't know. But Seth Rollins confirmed that he is going to be in the Royal Rumble match. Ryan, your thoughts with this breaking news story that came out on Monday?
It's huge news, man. I mean, I was expecting Seth Rollins to be doing something totally different, like one of those titles that he isn't in contention for right now. So, yeah, huge shocker.
No, next thing you know, John Cena's going to be in the pay-per-view. Yes, he is. He's got quite the title match here. But before we go on any further and give our thoughts, remember every single week, Byte That Cast on Twitter, we set up the polls about Raw, SmackDown, your enjoyment or lack thereof for each show. So with Raw, it's basically the same thing every week. The majority gave it only 2 out of 4, 50% stating it was just okay. And now we go to SmackDown, where the majority clearly supported it, stating 71%, 3 out of 4. I had fun, Maggle. We had fun making the poll this week, and I gotta agree. Although this week, I don't know if you felt this way, and unfortunately we don't have Keith for a middleman. I think this was a run-of-the-mill week throughout. I think that SmackDown was undoubtedly the better show, but I don't think there was that one thing, if you walk out of the show thinking, oh, that is the one thing. I thought the whole show was solid, but nothing that is going to be remembered down memory lane, because we're probably going to get the evolution of whatever happened this week closer to the Rumble, because we still have about 2 more shows left.
Yeah, SmackDown definitely the better show this week. And it really is just continuing the stories that it currently has. And this just happened to not be a spectacular edition. So there was nothing on SmackDown that really blew anybody away. Nothing on Raw that really blew anybody away. But I don't think either episode was horrible either. So really just kind of that middle of the road week.
Yeah, same. Now, before going any further, I got to talk about this because I mentioned the Rumble. Have you taken a look at the poster for the Rumble? Because there's this controversy regarding where AJ Styles has been placed. But basically, it's the same poster we get every year where it's a bunch of people across the whole place. But at the front, you have guys like Brock Lesnar, Goldberg, John Cena, The Undertaker. Then behind them is Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Dean Ambrose. And somewhere in the back to the right side, in a little corner, you can kind of see him.
I do see AJ.
There's AJ
back
Styles.
There. All right.
What is your first impression about that?
It is funny, and it definitely seems like AJ's pretty far back. But then again, so is Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho's way back there, too.
Do you think that it was warranted? There was a lot of backlash. I mean, it got to the point where people are saying this is why WWE is failing. AJ's getting buried. Wow. The comments were very, very hard, and I think it was maybe a slight overreaction. I get it. Basically, the front of it is the part-timers or the people that you want to sort of, have pass the torch to somebody else. But to this extent, we got to understand the casual fan, the 4 people in front, those are the ones that they care about. And that poster, much like video games, it's meant to sell the thing.
Yeah, this poster is pretty much Kevin Owens is actually, his placement is weirder to me than anybody else's because he's featured so prominently. And you might say, well, he's a Universal Champion. It's still surprising. Like, I'm more surprised they put Kevin Owens that far to the front instead of like Seth Rollins or something, as opposed to AJ being that far in the back. But he's the WWE champion. That is their crown jewel title, or at least it's supposed to be. And then they throw him all the way in the back. Yeah. But I was going to say, this poster is like an exact representation of like how Vince McMahon feels about everybody on this poster. Like, the further back you are, the less he likes you. Although there's definitely some exceptions. But I mean, Chris Jericho is way too far back. And so, Chris Jericho's next to R-Truth. Come on, man.
Why is R-Truth even there? No offense to R-Truth, but when's the last time that man was relevant? Forget about AJ, man. AJ's on the opposite side of the spectrum from R-Truth.
Right in between Sasha Banks and Rich Swann. He's got quite the crew with him.
But yeah, basically everybody listening, let us know if you think that the poster, how important is the poster to you? Ultimately, the show's going to happen. AJ Styles has a tremendous opportunity with John Cena. These 2 guys have back-to-back awesome matches. I'm looking forward to this. So to me, it's just like, okay, I get it. Ideally, we want to get basically the people on the back of this poster to the front.
John Cena is the only official SmackDown person that is in the first 2 rows at all.
But The Undertaker, man, I mean, he showed up on Raw, but remember when he showed up on SmackDown and things happened?
Yeah, Undertaker doesn't count as SmackDown at all. So it's really Cena. So that's what they think about SmackDown. Everybody, like, The Miz is all the way in the back, AJ's all the way in the back. Feels bad, man.
What do you think about The Undertaker on Raw? Because he showed up, we were very confused. What's going to even end up happening? And then he announces that he is going to be in the Royal Rumble match. We talked last week that he doesn't have a lot of time. If WrestleMania doesn't define him, isn't this like the most hypocritical thing considering the winner of the match main events WrestleMania? And if WrestleMania doesn't define you, shouldn't you like just not... he should almost exclude himself from the Rumble to successfully deliver that message. But here he is just sort of going, well, I'm going to be in here. And I can't say that I'm looking forward to it too much because what do you do? Like, in the scenario where The Undertaker actually wins the Rumble, which I don't see that happening, I don't like that. Somebody else needs to get that shot, that opportunity that is not, your Roman Reigns or The Undertaker. Basically, if you're on the front of this poster, you shouldn't win the Rumble.
Undertaker did exactly what I said he was going to do, and was nothing else but say he was in the Rumble. And no, I totally agree with you. It made no sense for him to say WrestleMania won't define my legacy and then say, hey, I'm going to enter in the Royal Rumble to get a shot at the title at WrestleMania. I tweeted out one of the best Reddit comments I've ever seen about The Undertaker. I would just like to read this to you, Juan. I'm sure you've already heard it, but I think everybody needs to hear this. All right. So this is from Gene Sante on Reddit, and they said, the last time we saw Undertaker, he was on Smackdown Live November 15th, 2016, taking souls and digging holes. Today, January 9th, at the time this was tweeted, he said he dug 29 holes. I can only conclude that after 55 days, Taker's average hole digging is 0.52 holes per day.
He's got to up that cardio game, because that is
I know. I mean, we've seen it. He, in the ring, he's definitely slowed down. But come on, man, you can definitely dig better than that. I mean, a half a hole a day.
Get your brother to help you, man. He's an expert at Brady Live matches.
It's true. So Undertaker is a really interesting story right now because he's in the Rumble, and I think he is one of the favorites to win for sure. Everyone on that poster, the people in the front, aside from Charlotte, are probably in that conversation of who can win, whether it's Goldberg or Brock Lesnar or The Undertaker himself. It could be not John Cena, he's in a title match. But the thing is, not to look too far ahead, but the WrestleMania 34 conference, where they confirmed that they're going back to New Orleans already, Undertaker was at that press conference. So he is essentially, kind of like The Rock did a couple years ago, basically committing to WrestleMania 34 already, when a lot of people were expecting that this looked like it was probably the last WrestleMania.
It's never going to end. Man.
He's going to, let's say Cena wins the title at the Rumble, Taker wins the Rumble, you go to the title match where you do like title versus career type of situation. I think a lot of people were thinking that was the likely scenario. Now there's a good chance he's going to be at next year's Rumble, and do you think that's a mistake? I mean, I feel like how much left can he really give? I mean, just let the guy bow out.
Here's the thing. What I can imagine happen is this. WWE's thinking we're finally going to do it this year. The Undertaker is going to retire at WrestleMania, but then they find out that TNA is actually still in business. So they're just thinking to themselves, okay, if TNA is not ending, neither can the streak. The year that TNA ends is the year that The Undertaker retires from wrestling. So effectively, both of them are going to exist forever. We will die before any of these, either company or the superstar, retires, and that's going to be it. But New Orleans, that is the WrestleMania where the streak came to an end, correct?
Yeah, so maybe that would be really, really fitting. It's like you read these conflicting reports, like after the Shane McMahon Taker match, there were reports saying that he was done, like that was his last match. And now it's like he says he's back, and we're all suspecting this is going to be his retirement match, and now he's at the WrestleMania 34 conference. Granted, that could be a Hall of Fame induction year. He could still retire.
Yeah, I just think it makes a lot of sense.
The Undertaker has given so much, and maybe it's him that wants to stay. We really don't know. But I can't help but feel like they're just trying to squeeze every drop out of The Undertaker until there's nothing left. And I feel like let the poor guy bow out. I don't know. It just feels like he's kind of done with it. But I mean, he can't help but always give 100% and do, he's just a company guy, and that he can't say no to Vince, basically.
I'm just hoping that he's not a Kurt Angle type thing. I know Kurt Angle keeps being brought up, but remember when back in the day we were thinking, man, Kurt, you got to care about your health. I hope that The Undertaker doesn't have the wrestling bug, which is that whenever they're thinking about retiring, something happens where they just got to say, one more year. I don't want this to be the case where he ends up in a wheelchair or something because he's addicted to it, much like Kurt Angle was at the time.
See, the thing is, we've had these rumors about Cena and Taker But now there's some stuff floating around that, Strowman versus Taker, right? So the thing is, I feel like Strowman retiring the Undertaker or something, it's too much. That's sort of like streak level burden for someone to bear. And also, if they don't go that route, then it's like, well, you can't just have Strowman just beat Taker at one WrestleMania and then you just kind of move on at the next one. I don't know. It feels like that's kind of like maybe if they do, I forget what, like Fastlane. I don't know whose show that is, but maybe you do something like Taker and Strowman at Fastlane, and then you still go with the Cena Taker thing at WrestleMania. I don't know. What do you think about WrestleMania Strowman Taker?
Here's the thing. Regardless of what happens at WrestleMania, I don't think that any of us are going to get the closure that we want for The Undertaker. We can envision this whole, oh man, like there's going to be this build-up. It's going to be proper close-out at the end of the match. All the superstars are going to come out and clap. Remember what they did with Sting. Let's never forget Sting's glorious WWE run and how well that turned out.
But that was,
when things like that
different,
happen,
man. Sting would have went out totally different.
We've been having this conversation for the last 4 years or so. Like ever since even before the podcast, we've been thinking, so this is the year, right? Because I don't see any other scenario where The Undertaker can last another year. So if we're having this conversation now at this point, I think we need to accept that we're not going to be satisfied with any of the outcomes, even if it's Strowman, which I do think, honestly, just do that match. Because at this point, I don't think that The Undertaker can have this 5-star match that we're clamoring for. It's either John Cena, Strowman, or nothing at all for me. But I don't think it's going to be anything outside of those two matches.
Like the perfect way to end Undertaker's career. It's just this full circle story. I think everyone just kind of wants... Undertaker deserves a story like Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair got, for their retirement.
He really does. And if they do the proper match like Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair, that is an excellent match.
Yeah. No, it's sort of this torch, if you think about it, right? Shawn Michaels retired Ric Flair, and then The Undertaker retired Shawn Michaels, and now somebody else has to retire The Undertaker. And John Cena, I think, is a great candidate because he's someone who is, he can bear that burden, and he's an established guy. Because you can't have it be a Fandango Chris Jericho situation where we all look back at that match now and laugh because Fandango never ended up being anything, right? Hashtag never Johnny Curtis, right? So... Never forget, man.
Yeah. Never forget.
But Cena is someone who can be like, okay, this is a megastar who retired another megastar. So it works. And you can tell that story of basically John Cena, day one... After his match, Undertaker was the guy who, went to him, congratulated him, and they've kind of gone, they had that, a few encounters, but they've kind of just been megastars on separate tracks, and now they're finally colliding again years later, and it's just kind of this full circle thing where the vet that congratulated the rookie, all of a sudden is going to get retired by that rookie years and years later, which I think is just so cool. Like, that's such a cool story to tell, and it's
not something that you really get in wrestling.
Yeah,
usually
you don't
the other
get
guy's
that
gone
full
or
circle
something.
Storytelling almost ever, and it's just so.
And if
perfect.
anything, it plays off because you brought up Cena. Let's not forget the current John Cena. I think that John Cena finally got past this. Whether you like me or you hate me, you respect me. He now has this sense of entitlement. You have to like me. Even if you boo me, you know that I'm the real deal. Like, screw this whole new era stuff. So what better way to have something like this happen than, yeah, he's battling guys like Corbin and AJ Styles, but if he has this possible feud or match with The Undertaker where he just goes, I took Undertaker out because I'm the stepping stone. People always talk about The Undertaker showing up at WrestleMania, but I'm the guy that Undertaker, he walked up in front of me after my match with Kurt Angle in my debut, and now look where I am. I took him out, and anybody that wants to be the next Mr. WrestleMania has to go through me. And John Cena has beaten guys like Shawn Michaels. He has the perfect... I don't think they need to turn him heel. I think that the first thing we need to say is that officially, John Cena now is the John Cena character that we need. Anybody that says that he needs to turn heel or something, his whole thing is that you got to go through me to be the next top guy. That is better than a heel. You look at Dolph Ziggler this week on SmackDown Live. I was talking about this on Twitter, and the response was mixed because he was beating up on Apollo Crews and Kalisto to yes chants. Now, yes, it wasn't the whole arena, but this whole thing where a guy can turn heel like a bad guy and people will boo him is just not going to happen ever again. Very rarely will it happen. So with John Cena now, with this new character, do you like the turn that now we've had 2 weeks of this John Cena? We had a match with Corbin, and we see that he's continuing to be this edgy character. Do you see a scenario where maybe he even beats AJ Styles and then tries to take over the show?
I think the direction they're going with John Cena is he's like Cena edgy. He's not super heely edgy. He's kind of
he shouldn't be.
No, he shouldn't be. And I think this is it's the part of Cena we wanted, not the oh man, how am I going to overcome the odds? No, it's I'm the best. You got to go through me. I've got this chip on my shoulder because everyone thinks I'm a part-timer now and I can't cut it anymore. Well, I'm going to show you why I'm a 15-time world champion. That basically the Cena that embraces the legacy that he has created over these years, instead of pretending like he's walking into his first pay-per-view match and, oh boy, how am I going to win this one? And then just wins the match in the lol Cena wins type of fashion. No, he's acknowledging, yeah, I've got a hell of a legacy, I've got a hell of a career, and you got to prove yourself to me. I am the stepping stone, I am the gold standard. Do I think he's going to keep that attitude if he does face The Undertaker? I think he's probably going to go more of a respectful route with The Undertaker. I don't expect, because his kind of thing is Cena's new gimmick is really me versus the new era. And Undertaker is like the era before Cena. So maybe the storyline is before I take out the new era, I got to clean up the old era.
That would be a hell of a story. And what did you think about the match with Corbin? Because he's now back on SmackDown, seemingly for not like a full-time schedule, because he does have another movie coming up. So at some point he's got to leave. I'm assuming after WrestleMania. But it's nice, at least for me, that he main evented the show against a guy like Corbin, who is growing, with people. I think that the way he burns people on social media, he's like the Wendy's of the WWE. Wendy's has been kicking ass on social media. For those listening, yes, I'm talking about that Wendy's, like fast food chain Wendy's is freaking awesome. I don't know if you've seen that stuff, Ryan, but just look up Wendy's on Twitter.
I haven't seen it.
Watch they're aware of wrestling stuff. They make all these references. I'm very happy about that.
They're aware, or it's just one guy who's bored at work who loves wrestling.
But here we are talking about Wendy's.
There
so
you
now
go.
Talk to me about Corbin.
He's doing it right. Baron Corbin, it was cool to see this match that, a match that we haven't seen before in a good, like an interesting, intriguing main event after SmackDown. Was it an absolute barn burner? No. And, Cena gets the win. But I think this was a great spot for Corbin to be in because he has been stuck in this eternal feud with Ziggler and Kalisto, just on and off, switching between the two, never really moving up. And just, even though he lost, just putting yourself in a match, just being in a match with John Cena immediately elevates you. And it's getting the wheels turning for the audience to accept Corbin to become that sort of main event level guy on SmackDown. So you can really look at Strowman and Corbin as these two guys on either brand that are really they're that same spot. They're very different. They're both big guys, but very different characters. Strowman just wants to destroy everything in his path, and he doesn't necessarily have a focused agenda, whereas Corbin's more of this loner who thinks very highly of himself, thinks he deserves the top spot, thinks he should be getting paid the most money, etc. So
do you think either one of these guys could possibly win the Rumble?
I would say no. Because WrestleMania, all this time, this season, the road to WrestleMania season, it gets cloudy, and all the part-timers start showing up and they start taking all the top spots, and I would be very, very shocked. But I mean, we still get a couple weeks out before, we'll see how things develop before I want to give like a firm prediction for anything at the Rumble, but there's no doubt in my mind that they are going to have significant, they're going to have a significant presence, the both of them, in the Rumble. Whether it's they get the most eliminations or whatever, they will be a force in that match for sure.
Yeah, this can be the most unpredictable Rumble we've had in a while, because whenever you watch it, you think that, okay, there's these 4 guys that can win, but if there's any year where we can have a wild card winner, I think it's this one. I don't want it to be any of the top guys. I wouldn't even mind like a Corbin or something like this to win, just because.
Be nice. It would be nice.
Exactly.
Do I
think
different. It's gonna happen though? No. Unfortunately not.
Why is that the ultimate conclusion to anything? Hey, that sounds like an awesome idea, man. It's just not going to happen.
Because I've been burned too many times, especially by the Royal Rumble recently. It used to be, it still is my favorite pay-per-view and one of my favorite matches of the year. But the past couple years, although last year wasn't too bad with Triple H winning it, but the 2 years before that, where everyone basically just raged and everything, it was such a mess and so disheartening that it's hard. I'm always like gun shy about getting hyped about the Royal Rumble now, just because I'm like, we've had so many disasters recently that it's tough to even amp myself up because I'm just expecting disappointment at this time.
Rey Mysterio number 30, man.
Never
forget.
That just like sucked the life out of me.
Poor Ray. Do you want to keep going with SmackDown Live, or do you want to switch back to Raw? Because we got a couple things to continue
We can jump back
to
Raw.
Okay, so one of the big things that people were giving WWE a lot of flack, and understandably so, the main event for Raw was a handicap match between your WWE Universal Champion and Chris Jericho versus Roman Reigns for the U.S. title. And this match was going to happen at the beginning of the show, but then it was moved up. This was déjà vu because they have done this exact same thing with the exact same people. If you haven't listened to the Sam Roberts Wrestling podcast, like from last week, he actually pulled up something that I believe was from Squared Circle, stating that these 3 guys, the combination, have battled each other so many damn times that it's justifiable our disappointment with them doing it so much. Yet again, at the pay-per-view, we are going to get Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns. I'm mixing shows now here. But what I want to get to is that Chris Jericho won the match. I'm still not crazy about how things played out. I think the idea that Kevin Owens is not the main champion. He has the main title. He's not the main champion. And this match, main eventing the show, definitely clarified that. If it wasn't clear, it definitely is now. Chris Jericho's never held the U.S. title before, ever. So now he is a legitimate Grand Slam champion. All I got to say is, drink it in, man. Drink it in, bask it in. Jericho wearing gold. Your thoughts?
I feel like this should have happened like a month ago. It just seems like they kind of we talk about SmackDown sometimes with since their talent pool is so small that they have to really draw out feuds for a while just because they got to make the most of it before they start switching talent around. Yeah, I feel like they've been dragging this thing out for so damn long, and it really feels like they should have given the title to Jericho like a month ago or something like that. I'm glad he has it, and it's cool now that Owens and Jericho are both champions. I don't expect it to last very long, but it is nice, and Jericho obviously deserves to hold that Grand Slam title and to be U.S. champ. So I'm definitely happy for him. I don't really know where they go with this. I don't think Reigns is going to go for the rematch, but this kind of screams the whole, hey, let's get that little title off of Reigns before we give him the red title.
And the problem is that I think that they're doing, it's not something that people are going to love, but they're doing the smart thing. He's not going to win the Rumble, but he's going to win the title. And then whoever he battles at WrestleMania is going to get cheered. So you're kind of getting what you want, even though Reigns is the champion. And I've gone on record on the podcast saying that I really don't have anything against Reigns. Like when he wrestles, I enjoy his matches. Like, yeah, like on Raw, I may not care about them that much, but everybody listening, keep in mind, how many times have we seen this combination? You know, if even in your favorite movie, if you watch it in the past 3 months, if you watch your favorite movie like 25 times, you're going to get sick of it. It's not the same thing as saying 25 times in 5 years. So when you think about that, it's like, of course we're going to get sick of all these guys. It's the only thing we see on a 3-hour show.
At this point, I really have nothing against Roman Reigns. I really have nothing against Roman Reigns. Pretty much. I honestly can't think of anything aside from his character isn't interesting. But guess what? I don't think almost anybody's character is interesting right now.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that right there.
Who in your heart of hearts, in WWE, just in WWE straight up, who in your heart of hearts do you actually care about right now? I know it's not nobody. There's definitely a few guys out there, but it's a lot less than it should be.
Yeah, you have Jericho, you have AJ Styles. But after that,
The Miz,
you have people like... Oh, no, of course, there's The Miz. Dean Ambrose is actually really getting back to that. Yeah. I think that with the rivalry that he's had there. But when you look back in the past 10, 15 years, you could have a roster. Like, I could easily pick out 5 people. But even after number 5 here, there's people that I'm hopeful. They're people that I support because I like their wrestling or I like what they've done in the past.
But it's like
now?
But yeah, right now, are you actually interested? Like Seth Rollins right now. I don't care about Seth Rollins right now.
He's the most vanilla guy on the entire roster. He's like, what is this thing? Tell me, who is Seth Rollins right now? I don't know.
What are his attributes? What is his motivation aside from the fact that he just doesn't like Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens right now? I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah, I mean, even Kevin Owens right now, I just feel like his character is kind of deteriorated. Jericho still remains pretty amusing. The friendship, their dynamic is great, but I do feel like in the long run, Kevin Owens' character has kind of suffered. I mean, if you look at where his character was when he first debuted and just being the prize fighter and just interested in the money and stuff like that, and I feel like he's become kind of a joke. Even though he's the champion, he feels kind of like a watered down version of when Seth Rollins was champion with the Authority. It sucks. It sucks because you picture, okay, Kevin Owens is going to be Universal Champion, and you're like, oh, this is awesome. They can do so much, and there's so much to look forward to. And it's really just... It's not been the most interesting title reign. You would think it would be so much more epic, but it really just hasn't panned out that way.
You completely remove Chris Jericho from this, and there's no entertainment value from it.
It's nothing without Chris Jericho.
And the thing is, we know that Kevin Owens has the potential. The problem is that we as wrestling fans have the biggest problem, which is that we tie everything to the past. I love Kevin Steen. Remember when Kevin Owens was on NXT? We're not talking about that. We're talking about Kevin Owens, Universal Champion. What's he doing right now? Right now. Remove Chris Jericho. Remove even Roman Reigns. You're left with somebody that has nothing. What happened to the prize fighter? What happened to the promo guy saying that, a title means more money for me and my family? They stripped all of that away. Whether he's a good guy or he's a bad guy, all of that is gone. That is not part of the character anymore. And I can't just think, oh, well, he said that a year ago, so I'm assuming that's still part of the story. No, because things change. And if you don't tell me that things are changing, I'm just going to assume that you're just satisfied with whatever's happening right now.
Natalya versus Nikki Bella is a more interesting feud that's going on SmackDown than the main event feud on Raw.
And with that, you've said it the best that it could. And I want to bring up now Stephanie McMahon, because I know that you definitely wanted to bring that up here. Stephanie McMahon is the character killer in wrestling. I mean, the fact that we started Raw with a evaluation, I think is the worst. What are they trying to do? Really? Does WWE think that Stephanie is the legitimate heel that people love to hate, and then they just want to start Raw with her? They want her to emasculate men, to just destroy women emotionally, and then that somehow gets us interested? Because I honestly don't know. Put it this way. I saw Stephanie McMahon at the beginning of Raw. You want to know what I actually did? I muted my dish anywhere. And when she was gone from my screen, I unmuted it so I can tell you a damn thing that was said at the beginning of the show. It has gotten that point for me.
Can you believe there was a time where we all wanted Stephanie McMahon back? There was a time. Because she was gone for a while. But now it's like she's never left.
We were wrong, man.
Yeah.
Kids say stupid things, man. We were stupid people then.
Yeah. Like, I think a part of the reason why Mick Foley has had kind of a questionable run as GM is, you know, he's obviously had some fumbles of his own, but then the fact that you're coupling that with Stephanie belittling him all the time just makes him seem like 10 times more incompetent than he's actually been. And then, like, so that goes on. And what bothered me is lately she's been kind of this foil to Bayley, right? She's basically saying like, oh, I never wanted you here. And then, you know, telling Sasha Banks that she's the real boss or whatever. It really just makes everyone seem like children. She treats everyone like they're children. And I actually liked if they went the angle where Stephanie basically treats Bayley like a child. If there was some way that Bayley is going to get something back on Stephanie. But that remains to be seen. I mean, yeah, sure, Stephanie had that feud with Nikki Bella a couple years ago. But what ended up really coming from that? Nothing.
It's a problem.
Yeah, Stephanie won the match because Nikki Bella turned heel or whatever. So are we going to get the same thing with Bayley? Is Bayley ever going to get a revenge, or is she just going to get crapped on by Stephanie?
Or it could even be Sasha, because I do think that I don't want to see more Charlotte, Sasha. Plus, I think it's weird back-to-back Manias. You have two people in the same match. So if you do Sasha versus Stephanie, I don't have a problem with it. I just think that it's a problem where there is no end game. There's no final boss battle here because Raw keeps going. Okay, so Sasha beats Stephanie at WrestleMania. Say that happens. Stephanie is just going to be on Raw the night after. And then what? They're magically going to get along? Like, is Sasha going to turn heel? Can you imagine that, where they actually repeat all of that? I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah. And like we saw with the last time, we thought, okay, maybe if Brie Bella gets the pin on Stephanie, then we can finally say someone got one over on Stephanie. But nope, they couldn't even do that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they find a BS way out of it in this. And it's completely unfair for a character to just basically slay everyone else and never ever get to look bad, except when Vicky Guerrero retires. That's the only time she gets to look bad in the past, like, 5 years.
And that is just on a whole different level. So now let's please take a break from Raw.
Well, hold on. Props to Taker, though.
Damn, though.
Props to Taker for going over to Stephanie and being like, yeah, no one controls me. No one. I feel like he kind of did that just to help out a little bit, you know?
What was up with that grunt he did after 29 Souls for... No, rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Was he like chowing down on some bacon? We didn't notice.
He's just dedicated, man. He has to morph his voice in such a way, and then it's gotta, you know, it's just gotta come down from that a little bit.
And it definitely did.
Yeah. I have no explanation. It's like the Triple H troll scream, you know? You never know where it really comes from.
That is very true. But we haven't heard that in a while. But now I do want to switch to two people. Let's lump up this together because in the last 2 weeks, we've really seen the evolution of Neville and then just Ziggler sort of going back to what he was around AJ Elite time, just being a little bit more mean here. With number one Neville, I think that the man's just straight fire. I love that he finally got rid of the red arrows of finishing maneuver. That's got to be tough, though, because I think that anybody that goes to a live event and knows Neville is wrestling, you're waiting to see that. So it makes sense that you replace that with the Rings of Saturn, one of my favorite submission maneuvers, because that alone will get people to boo him. That'll actually get people to boo him because they want to see something else. They don't want to see that. And then they end up seeing that. And he has this mean streak on him. He's just so aggressive there. You know, he's like really playing that successfully, man. I'm just loving that. And then on the other side, you have Ziggler. He's doing exactly what I didn't want him to do right now.
he's a hell of a worker, got a mean streak on him.
But he's really doing exactly what I didn't want him to do. I said last week, he better not just become the generic, like, people turn on me, so I turn on you. I'm gonna be mad. I know it's just been a week, but it's Dolph Ziggler. I'm used to just seeing him on screen. I want change. I want legitimate change, not just, well, I'm mean now. And that's what you wanted. Because even though it's cool that we got to see him beat up Kalisto and Apollo Crews, okay, a month from now, if that's just the character, it's going to be what I believe you said. He's just going to be lost somewhere in the mid-card with nothing to do except now he's mean to people. And we're supposed to boo him, even though people are clearly not booing him.
I have faith that SmackDown will tell better stories and they'll actually find something. I mean, this really is just the beginning. It's the first couple weeks of this. And he really hasn't fully stepped into that heel character yet. This is kind of just him lashing out. I was a little confused by his demeanor on Talking Smack. He seemed just way too calm and just chill about everything, and he was just whacking the shit out of somebody with a chair, and then he's like, yeah, that's what I did. I was just, this is me, this is my, something coming out of me or whatever. He was just so calm about it, so it just doesn't seem like he's fully there yet. He's crossing over the spectrum and heading towards heel, but I think this is just him. It's kind of nice when we don't go from just full face to full heel overnight. Like, there's actually this process that gets you there. Because it is a little ridiculous in wrestling how someone could just immediately just throw out all of their values that they had before and are like, screw the crowd, even though 2 weeks ago I said I loved you, It's this process that happens. So if this is more of a slow burning heel turn, then I'm all for it. I like something like this.
Yeah, it's not bad. And looking at the positive side, this finally gives Apollo Crews and Kalisto something to do. That's not what you brought up earlier, Baron Corbin, for the 50th time. We get a difference here, so we got to see a match like that on SmackDown Live. I'm looking forward to what unfolds. I have no idea what they have in store for him at WrestleMania, but something that we did get much clearer as to what's happening is that we got a tag title match rematch on SmackDown Live where the Wyatt family lost, and it definitely seems like they're speeding up this process of they were going to break up, where we had Randy Orton left in the ring. There's been this struggle between Luke Harper and Randy Orton. Maybe they went to Dave and Buster's. Things went wrong. Randy stole his tickets.
Don't drag me into this.
You're going to be somehow shoehorned into this with Eric Rowan, and then we're all just going to go there, Dave and Buster's at WrestleMania. Now, going back to the topic, what do you think about this, where this has been a weird pairing, but people, myself included, have enjoyed it? It's weird that Randy and Bray Wyatt kind of just meshed together, and it made sense, but now that this may be breaking up, who's going to break up with who? Who?
It's probably likely. I think the whole thing is going to fall apart, to be honest with you. We could even end up in some sort of triple threat feud. It feels like the most tension, though, is between Harper and Orton. And it would actually be pretty cool to see that, okay, Harper and Orton start getting into it. Bray Wyatt can't deal with it anymore because he's like, it's weird when Bray Wyatt seems to be the voice of reason right now, huh? Isn't that kind of weird?
And that's what's awesome.
Yeah.
The fact that it's between these two other guys and you totally think that Randy's going to be the more human one, yet Bray's the one who's just like, you guys sort this crap out.
Trying to keep everything together and is, the peacemaker. Where I think this is going, though, and this could be pretty awesome, is that we all think that Orton's going to be the one who betrays both of them or whatever and turns babyface again. But it would be kind of awesome if Orton and Wyatt actually betray Harper, and Harper's the one who's left on his own to become like a new babyface or whatever. Harper's just so awesome. And I don't think anyone has better facial expressions than Luke Harper, man. I mean, he He sells everything so, like, nobody sells their character better with one facial expression than Luke Harper.
No, agreed 100%.
Not even Alexa Bliss can hold a candle to Luke Harper.
Whoa, hey, be careful with what you say there, man. But, you know, he gives her a run for the money. But I'm hoping that ultimately it's just not... Luke Harper has gotten the short end of the stick a lot of times here with whatever they're doing with the Wyatt family. He's the one that takes the pin, or he's just like the afterthought. Shave the man's beard if you have to do something with him. I don't care. Just do something where
do
after
not
the
shave
storyline...
That beard is
okay,
awesome.
fine. Just a little bit. Just a little trim. No? Nothing?
I can't even imagine what Luke Harper would look like without a beard.
He ends up looking like a 5-year-old Simon Dean. I don't know.
There's your Simon Dean reference for the week.
I gotta get it, man. Luke Harper, you're awesome, man. And the last topic that we want to cover for the main portion of Raw and SmackDown Live is that Alexa Bliss and Becky Lynch will be battling in a women's steel cage match. Now, this is not the first time that the women have been doing this, and I loved that they didn't kill themselves trying to build this up like, oh my God, you know, 2 women inside of a cage. The build-up made sense. Hey, La Luchadora is interfering. Let's solve this thing. Cage match. Logically, nobody can interfere. I mean, that always ends up happening.
Nobody can interfere.
I appreciated that.
AKA, we're likely going to find out who La Luchadora is next week because she will interfere.
But do you like how they went about building this? They didn't make a big deal out of it. They just let it happen.
Yeah. And once again, the SmackDown women, they get match stipulations when they actually make sense to have them. So I really dig this. My only gripe, and it's similar to the women's Hell in a Cell thing, is it's like, oh, you guys are going to fight inside a steel cage, and Becky Lynch is all like, yes, like super excited. What happened to like fearing the cage? There's just no, everyone treats it's like
we have fun,
it's like
Mago.
We
have fun.
When JBL, when it's like an Extreme Rules match and JBL's like, oh, they got the toys or whatever. It's like, why are you calling them toys? They're weapons. These are dangerous weapons.
Ryan, you forget that ultimately this is a company that sells merchandise and toys to kids. And we sometimes forget that some kids have historically used these things as weapons. So I'm assuming that they're just playing it safe where if something happened, and this is my serious answer, where they can just go, hey, we at no point call the weapons on the show. They have fun on Monday nights, Michael, and they love the matches.
With that same logic, is it better to tell these kids, this is some dangerous stuff they're doing here, that, you know, these are dangerous weapons that you don't want to mess with, or you call them toys. So he's like, oh, I'm going to play with the toy. I'm going to hit my friend with this toy. You know what I mean? It could go either way. I got a steel chair. Look at what I can... Exactly. No. See what I'm saying?
You know my point from earlier about toys? No. You can die with these things. Don't try this at home. Just because half the roster did try this at home, and eventually they became superstars because of it.
Hey, remember how we hired Mick Foley because, you know, he's got that tape of him jumping off the roof or whatever, you know, like, remember how that got him noticed? Yeah, don't try this at home.
Please do not try this at home.
Yeah, but like I said, this is cool that what they're doing with the steel cage match. I just wish they would sell the intimidation factor a little bit more with these types of things. Like, just don't have Becky Lynch all cheery and giddy about it. Just have her be serious and, you know, face to face with Alexa, you know, prepared for the match or whatever. Don't just sell it like, hey, we're gonna have some fun, Maggle. It's a steel cage match.
Woo! Now we're gonna have a lot of fun on Saturday, February 4th. What is happening there? We have ourselves a 12-hour wrestling video game marathon. Are we allowed? Okay, Ryan, confirm this. Are we allowed to have fun on this day? Can we actually have fun? Legally speaking, can we?
Yes, we can. Legally, I've talked to our lawyers.
Okay.
They have said we may not be able to use the word fun on the stream, but we are allowed to have it.
And how do we pay for said lawyers?
Well, thankfully we got those lovely Patreon supporters.
So real talk, We want to thank everybody for supporting us so much. We did reach a goal on Patreon. We announced that last week that we are going to be having a 12-hour wrestling game marathon happening on Saturday, February 4th, beginning at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to play a variety of games. As a matter of fact, to sort of do a build-up for the next month or so at both our VidMe channel, which is vid.me/ByteThat, and on the YouTube channel, ByteThatCast, we're going to have a variety of wrestling, video game-related videos coming out, including this next weekend. We have a 40-plus minute video where we go through my wrestling video game collection, and Keith and Ryan sort of try to intervene, stating that, and this is not true. This is not true, Prince. Just because you're listening, this is not true. I do not have a wrestling video game addiction. I just like to collect things. I like to collect things, Ryan. So we talk about that. And announcement.
He's addicted,
I'm gonna
folks.
get Dixie. Just because Dixie Carter's gone from wrestling does not mean I will not get some influences from her. Announcement within an announcement. So in that video, there is another announcement, because next week we are going to be having the Shut Your Rumble. So we're going to get the Royal Rumble hype. So not this Saturday, next one, we're going to get a 30-man Rumble going on the game Shut Your Mouth. It is completely computer generated. Now, on this weekend's video, there will be a screenshot with all 30 participants. And if you comment on that video and you actually end up getting it right when the Shut Your Rumble video comes out, we'll give you a shout out on the podcast. So stay tuned for that. We're on the road to WrestleMania. We got to do crazy stuff.
Yeah, you gotta get hyped up for the Rumble. Get hyped up for the wrestling video game stream February 4th. We're gonna be playing a ton of games. I'm probably gonna be playing games like Here Comes the Pain and 2K14. Juan has a million wrestling games, so I'm sure he'll pick out a couple of good ones. It's gonna be a great time, so make sure to hang out. That's gonna be over at twitch.tv/ByteThat. We'll definitely remind you guys on the shows leading up to that, as well as on social media, so just keep a lookout for that. Speaking of Patreon, because of that lovely Patreon goal, was due to some excellent Patreon supporters. And this week, we'd like to thank Matthew Zeller and Derek Wilson. We really appreciate the support. If you want to support us, go that extra mile and get some sweet perks in return. Head on over to patreon.com/ByteThat.
Yes, please indeed go ahead and do that. And this weekend, I may be doing some pre-stream hype. Maybe streaming over at Press Pause TV on Twitch on Sunday. So tomorrow, that is Thursday, January 12th, I may be unleashing a poll where you can pick between two of the games that I may be streaming. So far, I'm thinking between Smackdown vs. Raw 2011 or WWE 12. So Twitter, ByteThatCast, you're going to get that information there. Vote, and then maybe I will stream on Sunday.
And last quick thing, next week, we're going to have an announcement regarding a Royal Rumble giveaway. So, yes.
How many announcements have we had? Ryan, are you Dixie Carter?
Maybe.
Well, you don't look like her.
Yeah, so stay tuned. Next week we'll have details about a pretty cool giveaway.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. It's going to be Royal Rumble themed, and it's going to be awesome.
What we're trying to say is we got a lot of stuff planned for 2017, and the Rumble is the initiation of that. Now, this is going to be historic. I'm not going to talk about WWE, Ring of Honor, or TNA. I'm going to talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling right now. Because
is this a first? Well,
this is the first time ever, I think. For New Japan, yeah.
Probably.
I've talked about Ring of Honor. I've talked about TNA. But I know you haven't. Unfortunately, this sucks because Keith watched the Kenny Omega versus Okada match to talk about it on the show, but he's not here. I actually watched the entire show, Wrestle Kingdom. I subscribed to New Japan World. Super hard to browse. They got to update that website because it's got English. It's an English translated website. I got to point out, English translated automatically by Google. So it's not exactly user-friendly. But Kevin Kelly, I almost said Kelly, and Steve Carino provide the commentary for the show. The whole show, man, it was freaking awesome. I mean, it was over 4 hours long. I did not watch it live, but it motivated me. I've actually taken a lot of time now. I've watched multiple AJ Styles matches in New Japan Pro Wrestling, including with the likes of Tanahashi, etc. guys, we gotta, for everybody listening, if you're only watching WWE, at least do this challenge for yourself. Subscribe for New Japan World. It's like $9 a month or something, and just for at least 1 month, consume some of it. Look up AJ Styles matches, Nakamura. This show was so freaking good. And then you talk about the main event. Dave Meltzer was on Stone Cold's podcast talking about how awesome it was. He gave it 6 stars, man. That's unreal. 6-star rating. He broke his own chart thing. And I can't sit here and say it is the greatest match that I've seen. I need to watch it again in order to get that. I will say I have not been entertained by a match since this one in probably years. The storytelling, like the complaints that we have about WWE, about the matches being so fast-paced they no longer sell, about the build-ups, about too many false finishes. Like Kenny Omega, he has the one-winged angel as a finisher. Yes, it's a reference to Final Fantasy VII. Basically, if you don't know, Ryan, he gets him into the electric chair drop position, but then grabs him, almost end up in like a Michinoku driver type thing. So it's a really crazy move. He never hit it in the entire match. An hour-long match. The whole build-up was that he can never hit it.
Yeah,
he lost the match.
Planned to watch it. I've already listened to several podcasts who've talked about it. I know I still haven't watched it. I meant to last night and just totally spaced on it. So I will watch it because I definitely have to see this. But I mean, Kenny Omega is basically the hottest thing in wrestling right now after this match. Everybody's talking about him, so I definitely got to check this out.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'm some kind of expert for Kenny Omega. This is like the first full match that I've seen of him. But thanks to that,
you're
I've
our
now watched
resident
like
New
another
Japan
match.
pro wrestling expert.
Well, I mean, if we got to pick one out of the three of us.
Watching Wrestle Kingdom amongst us actually qualifies you.
Why not, right? But then the other part, and this is where it gets really juicy. John Cena's Instagram is like the greatest social media thing. He posts the most random shit, for lack of a better term. No context, no text, just an image. What does he do? Post a picture of Kenny Omega. He posts a picture of Mega Man because he's Kenny Omega. He's an avid video gamer, and even his Twitter tag is Kenny Omega Man X or something like that. So then Kenny Omega before this has been tweeting. He doesn't know what he's going to do. He's not sure about his future. Cue the speculation. I guess what it boils down to is that because you haven't watched the match, I'm not going to put you in the spot with this. I am going to ask you, are you intrigued by the possibility of a guy like Kenny Omega showing up in WWE based on all this hype for the match that you've yet to watch?
I would definitely be interested to see if it would happen, although I definitely have my doubts because he's actually been, if I'm not mistaken, pretty outspoken about the fact that he wants to build himself as the guy who never really went to WWE and is he's kind of like Sting before Sting finally caved, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or at least that's the impression that he's given. He could be working everybody. You know, he could also be working himself into a shoot brother.
That can happen.
Yeah. So you never really know. I mean, last year, Cena put up pictures of AJ Styles, but at that point, a lot of us had already heard that he was all but signed to the company anyway, where this is a very different situation that's going on. Yeah, I think it would be awesome to have him in the company, but I feel pretty doubtful based on everything I've heard.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what's going to happen. I think that this year, this weekend we have the UK tournament. So by next podcast we'll have
Patriots
yet a
playoff game. I don't know if I'm going to be able to catch that one. At least
I doubt I'll be
airs.
watching it live, but I'll definitely be catching up on it. Hey, here's the excellent part of the network. Say Raw is just sucking all kinds of ass next week. I can just mute that thing. Second monitor, UK tournament. WWE, you've done it now.
That's not a bad idea.
See? And I guarantee you a bunch of people just stopped driving and just went, oh my God, that is the best idea ever. Now, every week, this is the main event. It is your questions. Remember, you can send us questions. ByteThatCast@gmail.com. Twitter, ByteThatCast. Utilize the hashtag AskBT. We are across all social media. What's important is let us know where you are from. It legitimately pumps us up to know where the Byte Club is from. You can send us questions about wrestling, about life. It can really be about anything. This is where we want to make sure the community is as involved as possible. Based on these questions, you guys are definitely on the road to the Rumble. So, Ryan, Do the Keith thing.
We are all definitely on the road to the Rumble. I'm not going to do the Keith thing, all right? No gimmicks today. I didn't do a good job last time. I did bad and I felt bad.
You got terrible reviews on Yelp.
Yes, terrible. All right, so our first question comes from David Acosta, a lovely Patreon supporter.
Yeah.
Can you recall a superstar that you were happy to see debut in WWE, but their debut was kind of a letdown?
I actually developed a list here. I got 4 picks. One of them is kind of not really a pick, but I'm going to go with it. Number 1, I'm going to say CM Punk because, yeah, he debuted in ECW at the Hammerstein Ballroom, but I think that him being in ECW when most of us as wrestling fans knew that this was the C-branded show, and at that time I had watched a lot of CM Punk in Ring of Honor and across all sorts of indie wrestling. I was let down by that. Another guy is Cesaro. I think that we forget he was a former rugby player.
That was a pretty brutal debut.
Yeah, before I bring out the other 2, you got any ones you want to bring up?
Frankie Kazarian was one.
Whoa, right.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
He debuted in Velocity, which was a pretty kick-ass show.
Velocity had its moments, yeah. Kazarian, a guy who had a lot of success in TNA, just kind of came over to WWE and it just didn't work out. There were things about him not wanting to cut his hair, and so he left. And then he just eventually cut his hair anyway, or whatever. And then, come on. All right, this may be the greatest debut ever, or the worst, but Braden Walker, man, come on.
Wow. See, ECW, man, it continues to be a theme.
Yep.
Because he's going to knock your brains out. 2 that I want to bring up have a very similar path, and it's Kalisto and Xavier Woods. Kalisto, most people, it got so bad where most people did not know Kalisto was part of the main roster because he was wrestling on Superstars tag teaming with Sin Cara, but you would see tweets telling people telling WWE, when is he going to debut on the main roster? He kind of did because he's been wrestling for the past 2 months on Superstars. And then Xavier Woods, out of nowhere, just teaming up with R-Truth, no background, and is like the jobbiest jobber for like the first year of his career. And then the last one is Ty Dillinger because he got super kicked to Stan. And you don't super kick Stan.
Getting kicked by Shawn Michaels is also a pretty good debut. But damn, I just had a name. Oh, Bo Dallas. Bo Dallas is another one. This guy, I don't understand why they have nothing for Bo Dallas. I mean, he had this amazing NXT run where, you know what, he wasn't the greatest in the world, you know, he wasn't the greatest in the ring or whatever, but that crowd, he elicited some of the strongest emotions from that crowd. And then I felt like him doing the Bo Leave gimmick on the main roster, I really felt like the crowd was actually responding to it and they just gave up on him out of nowhere. I still think the guy's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, sadly though, I think it's long gone. He's got like this stain, the Curtis Axel stain, that just will not go away.
Yeah, at this point, it's kind of done.
Poor Bo.
But anyway, thank you for the question. Our next question comes from True Prince of Pro. On Monday night during Raw, Juan sent out a tweet saying, "Oh my god, I just realized Rusev equals Fez from that 70s show."
I still stand by this.
I still don't understand the comparison, but it got me thinking. What was the dumbest thing that each of you guys have said that the other two don't understand?
I love this question so much. So this alone could be an hour podcast, I'm assuming, of just weird things I've said. For context, okay, Ryan, you've watched that 70s show, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so the reason that I sent out that tweet, and many people just looked at me like, what the hell is wrong with you, is because Rusev has this weird humor that to me is just dead on, but he doesn't laugh at his own jokes. Like Fez, you look at him, and the funniest parts of that 70s show in Fez is when he says something that he doesn't understand why other people find it funny. So like at that point when Rusev said like, "Oh, it must be an American joke, I don't get it," I completely thought about that. And plus physically they look the same. Identical.
All right, so the thing that you said that I still don't understand has to go back to, and we bring it up all the time, when he said that Kevin Owens was going to lose his mind and turn into Bray Wyatt.
That would have still been an excellent storyline, man.
Did you know
Just
I was
think
going to
about
say
it.
that?
Of course, man. You guys talk to me even off air, like at least once a week. I'm reminded of this, and I stand by the fact that it was going to be a kick-ass idea. Kevin Owens was going to lose his mind and start doing weird things, just beating up on people, and unlike Bray Wyatt, actually winning matches at that time. Now, for Keith or you, I honestly can't remember like a stupid or dumb thing that I've thought that you guys said, and I just went like, what the hell?
Well, it's in an outtake, but when I said you'll get early access to this video, remember that?
All right. No, there's enough. Okay, for those that don't know, we don't really edit the podcast. Like we don't usually take things out of the podcast, but every now and then, stupid things will happen that without context just make no sense. So we crop those things out. But then usually the dumb things I say will end up making it on the show. Because Keith usually edits, even though I'm editing this.
No, but
week,
I said
that's
that
beside the
during
point.
a thing I don't think we ever released, right? The game show thing.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Here, thank you for saying that. You know my real answer. The dumbest thing I have ever heard, and by that history, was so bad, it required an hour and a half of recording, and it never made air because Ryan said, "Hey, you know what we should do? Another BT trivia. I'll host this one. It'll be between you and Keith. I got this system. I'm working on a system." You know what? The entire system failed. Keith and I couldn't even answer half the questions. Like whenever Ryan, even in the bonus question, wouldn't show up, Keith and I started crying. He walked away at some point, physically speaking, and I was left standing there. And then
I'm pretty sure I deleted
like
the video by accident.
By
I tried to
accident,
do a
sure.
Jeopardy style game because we kind of just did standard trivia the first time. And I found this like teaching tool that you could set up all the Jeopardy questions. And I was trying to kind of like screen record that while like in OBS with a layout with everybody's cam too. So there were a lot of moving parts in recording it. And it just completely failed. And then I forgot to put the Final Jeopardy question in there when we went to Final Jeopardy. It was a total train wreck. And then I capped it off by plugging the Patreon saying you'll get early access to this video. It was a total, mess. Yeah. So,
which is already up by that time, hypothetically.
Yeah, exactly. You could never get, whatever. Anyway, just forget it. Let's move on. Thank you for the question. Next question comes from Snipin' Sexton.
Yeah.
Howdy, y'all. With all the talk about WWE tournaments in the new UK one and the rumored women's tournament, I was thinking I'd like to see a trios tournament like in Lucha Underground. So with that in mind, what are some potential trios you'd like to see in such tourneys besides the obvious ones like the New Day and the Shield? Thanks again. Have a great week.
I got a couple of picks here. You know, Cassius Ohno, the former Chris Hero, did come back in NXT, and physically he looks weird. That's another story. But a trio of him, Cesaro, and Sheamus, like just in your face, smash mouth trio, I think would be really good. I think that a legitimate contender would be Rusev, Jinder Mahal, and the Wellness Policy. Just that combination rolled into one, because every week Jinder like loses 10% more body fat. At this point, he's actually negative body fat.
Unhindered, unleashed,
and
ready for a strike
for this moment. Seriously, man, Jinder, what the hell? Another one that I would kind of love is Breezango and Goldust. I don't know why. I think that combination would work really well. And then this last one is just a sad trio. Hawkins, Darren Young, and Curtis Axel. You make the new 3MB, and nobody cares. But
Feels
give
bad,
these guys
man.
something. Managed by Jack Swagger and Bo Dallas.
Man, you're ready for those teams. How about you got Big Show, Mark Henry, and Braun Strowman?
The Big Strowman?
Just big sexual Strowman.
Oh,
there you go.
How does the theme song start? Well, it's the Braun.
Now, I actually think Swagger with him. Did you say Swagger with American Alpha? Because I think that would actually work.
Wait, Swagger with American Alpha? What?
Yeah.
No, I didn't say that, but
sure.
Well,
I know
not?
you said Swagger, but I was saying like he's got that kind of, you know, the the amateur wrestling style to him. So I actually think Swagger would work well with them, even if people have totally forgotten that he actually exists at this point in time.
He would work well in NXT off air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice one. Chris Jericho, Kevin Owens, and who would be good with them?
Christian would be awesome. If he was still around, that combo would have been great. Not just because all three are Canadian. That is totally not it. They have the same kind of comedy. Plus you get vitamin C back.
And then Gallows, Anderson, and a sad face.
Oh my God. You know what I just realized?
What?
If you had the combo of Jericho, Kevin Owens, and Christian, you could somehow get the initials of C-O-C-K kind of in there. I'm totally immature about it.
Not really.
Or C-O...
C-O-C?
Yeah, kind of.
You could just do, though, just moving on from that reference, you could just do the club, right? You could do Finn Balor with Gallows and Anderson. That's another 3-team you get there. You could also have just the Wyatt family with Orton. So tons of opportunities. That would be a cool thing to see. I feel like 6-man tags, ever since the Shield broke up, they kind of fell out of favor. They were a hot thing for a little while, but they've definitely kind of gone down in popularity, but it would be interesting to see. So thank you for the question. Our next question comes from Barnaballs, asking, if Samoa Joe had a surprise win in the Rumble, who would you rather see him face at WrestleMania, Kevin Owens or AJ?
Ooh, challenging, because I think both could be a very good combination, but I would like the idea of AJ. I always like the contrasting styles, because I think that Kevin Owens and Joe could have a very smash mouth style, but I would like the combination of AJ trying to be more high flyer. He would have to almost be more TNA AJ, just to sort of be able to complement against Joe. TNA AJ, and then get Chris Daniels as a referee, because that's all you need to really recreate the Unbreakable 2005 match, one of my personal favorite matches of all time, which if you haven't watched it, it is awesome. But yeah, AJ.
I think I would want to see Owens versus Joe. So that, like Juan said, you get that smash mouth, hey, now you're an all-star type of style going on there.
And then you complain about my references, man.
But the thing is, it's cute. You think that Kevin Owens and AJ are going to make it out of the Rumble with their championships. It's a nice thought. I'm not so sure that's going to happen.
You're like the dream killer.
I know. I'm the negative Nancy of the Byte That podcast, but yeah, Owens and Joe would be something I'd really like to see. So thank you for the question. Our next question comes from Collector 9000, not over 9,000.
9,000?
Exactly 9,000. Asking, what invasion angle is the best you can think of, and what is the worst you can think of?
First up, we actually have a square roundtable on the YouTube channel where we talk about whether invasion angles work or not. Came out like about a year ago. It's quite an old video, but I think it's relevant to this, so maybe you can promote it or link it somewhere. But best invasion angle you can think of. Are we talking about hypothetical, or what do you think, Ron? Are we doing like what actually happened?
What has actually happened?
What has actually happened? I think the only actual option is the NWO, because put it this way, the NWO got to a point where they had their own pay-per-view, where like even I don't know if you saw this, Ryan. If not, this is a great history lesson. Whenever WCW guys came out, they would have like crappy theme music poking fun at them. Like it would say like Luther. Like they would actually come out to that because it was an NWO like pay-per-view. Yeah. So they went all out. So talk about an invasion angle where it got to a point where I took over your show and I'm making you look bad just because you're not part of my team. Ultimately, that's why I think that we look at the NWO so highly to a point, because then 500 people joined and it all went to hell.
Yeah, I think it still has to be like the quintessential invasion angle because so many things had just fallen into place at the right time. Everything about it was the right time. And sure, it went totally off the rails later on. But you just had this circumstance where two big stars from WWE happen to have their contracts run out when they can jump over to WCW at a time where the internet was in its infancy, so no one really knows what's actually going on. So it actually felt real at the time. Just get, you know, if this had happened, this happens a couple years later, the internet's way too big, everyone knows everything, and it's just not nearly the big deal that it is at that time. So everything just really fell in line, and then you have Hulk Hogan turning heel and joining the Outsiders, and it's like, bam, whoa, this thing is huge. And it pretty much was the catalyst for the entire Attitude Era. Now, what's the worst one I can think of? I'm going to jump in first and say probably the invasion angle to WWE, just because all the major players that would have made it great just didn't show up until like way too late.
Ryan. Sean Stasiak. Are you telling me Sean Stasiak could not have single-handedly saved WCW and won?
That's exactly what I'm telling you.
Okay, cool. Go on.
Yeah, no, I just think, you know, you didn't have Goldberg, you didn't have Sting, none of the major players were there except you had Booker T, and that was like what they had to hold on to for quite a while. Yeah,
it wasn't believable. I guess you could say the core, but nobody ever thought the core
really
could take over.
A true invasion angle? Isn't that just kind of an offshoot of the Nexus?
Well, even then, though, like the whole point with Nexus was that they wanted to take over, but ultimately those are angles that show that it didn't work, because how do you try to take over, but then the show keeps going? Yeah. That's why I think the NWO was the only option. The NWO actually stopped WCW shows. They went that extra mile, but they were allowed to back then.
The main reason I give like the WCW invasion of WWE the worst one is probably because it's like such a colossal failure for what it could have been. For the potential that it had in what it actually ended up being was so far apart that's why you have to give it to the worst. Even though like they've, you know, aces and eights, it could be its own deal for like a bad invasion
They
angle.
had something happening there.
Yeah.
It fell apart at the end, but yeah, that was very close.
So thank you for the question. Our next question comes from Mr. Cody Collier, asking, since today marks 24 years since the first episode of Raw took place, what do you think are some of your favorite episodes?
This is actually a really tough call for me, because I have a really hard time remembering specific episodes of wrestling. So I can pinpoint, like, for whatever reason, some Raws that I remember involve the storyline between Kane and Shane McMahon. Mm-hmm. I just really enjoyed that stuff, and I know that some people back then saw that as like the lower points of wrestling because it was like after the Attitude Era and blah blah blah. But I really enjoyed it. Like it was sentimental, because you could tell like Stone Cold around that time was like on his way out. This was around WrestleMania 19 time. There was the passing of the torch. WWE wasn't ready for it. They weren't ready for like The Rock leaving, Stone Cold leaving, Triple H being the main guy, but not really to many people's eyes. And something about that was fascinating to me, because I wasn't like, I don't like to use this quote, but there's no other way. Like I wasn't like smart to the business, you know, like it wasn't like I was looking at forums 24/7, but even just watching TV, I could tell something was happening, because you saw these newer guys that just didn't have that fire. So even though maybe not all the episodes then were great, they were fascinating to me as a fan, and I recommend anybody go back in there, because it's a great history lesson and transition in the world of WWE.
Yeah, there's two episodes of Raw that really stick out to me, because the fact that so many things just kind of mold together, and you really look at wrestling kind of in terms of like feuds that happen as opposed to individual episodes. So my two favorite episodes of Raw probably have to be, one, the first round of the first ever, I think, Gold Rush tournament that they did that had Shawn Michaels versus Shelton Benjamin on it. I was there live for that one. So that will always
I'm jealous about that.
Yeah,
still.
that was always kind of stick out in my memory. And then another episode happening not too far from that one. I don't know if it was before or after, but the episode of Raw where they had the trial of Eric Bischoff, I thought was, for a Raw that had almost no wrestling on it, it was super entertaining and funny. And
That
I'll
was
never
the
forget
moon pie one, right?
Yeah, I'll never forget Mick Foley eating the moon pie as one of the funniest things they've ever done.
I need to rewatch this now.
So it's like it's no mystery to me that those episodes stand out because they had like it was like a central theme to the whole episode, you know. So it's easy to remember. Oh, this was a whole tournament that night, and then the other one was the entire episode was about the trial of Eric Bischoff. But those ones are definitely great ones. So thank you for the question. Our next question comes from Body Slam in Jam. Pretty cool name. Hey guys, if real Kurt Angle, I used the Twitter handle
Not the
there.
fake one.
Yeah,
Not the fake
if
one.
at real Kurt Angle were to return to WrestleMania, who would be his best available WrestleMania opponent?
Best WrestleMania opponent. You know what would be hilarious if somehow it was Samoa Joe versus Kurt Angle, kind of like how he came into TNA.
Yeah.
And then Samoa Joe does the favor. Real talk, it would totally be AJ Styles. Like I know AJ is.
We've got that in TNA. I mean,
Yeah,
it'll be an awesome match. It'll be an awesome match.
It's not the same AJ.
Continue.
Yeah, it's not the same AJ, man. AJ Styles has grown phenomenally, dare I say, as a superstar. He was a wrestler in TNA. He is a superstar in WWE. In the best way possible, I do say that. Plus, it's a great history in wrestling where you can see those two guys and you can have a reference to the past and see, oh man, this is how they've changed. This is how they've adapted. They've been able to tell a better story. Aside from that, if I had to go with a more obvious route, you know, Kevin Owens can definitely be a good contender. But this almost goes back to what we talked about at the top of the show. Who do you really care about in the show? Who are you invested in? I can't even tell you like Dean Ambrose or Rollins. I'd be bored. Like, it wouldn't be a bad match. But this is not something that would make me mark out, go all crazy as a wrestling fan, because I am not that invested in most of the guys.
I'd have to pick Seth Rollins. And it's not even because I'm the most invested in him, but it's the matchup that intrigues me the most. You want to see someone who's got a style that could really complement Kurt Angle, and I feel like Rollins could definitely be that. I don't want to see Angle versus Styles and Angle versus Joe just because we've gotten those, you know, not super recently, but recently enough for me, you know. I'd still love to see them happen in WWE, but if I had to pick one match for Kurt Angle to have, it would have to be someone who's come up in the WWE since Angle has left. Now, he's had feuds with John Cena. He's wrestled a lot of the vets on the roster, but he hasn't touched anyone in the Shield or anything like that. So, and out of the Shield, who I'd want to see him wrestle the most would be Seth Rollins. Now, I'd also like to see him against Chad Gable, but is Chad Gable going to get that spot? Probably not, but I think they would have an awesome match. I mean,
that's going to be an awesome what if.
Angle just managing American Alpha makes so much damn sense that I wish it would happen. So thank you for the question. Our next question comes from Sam Harry, asking, if there was a Mania Fatal 4-Way with Taker, Braun, Lesnar, and Goldberg, would it be awful? Who would win?
Would it be awful? Yes. I think I want to take a quote from Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast. There's too much birthday cake. I think you have two similar opponents. They're all brawlers. They're all like very physical. And I'm just thinking like the benefit of a Fatal 4-Way match is that you can cut from these two guys beating up each other a certain way to two other guys beating each other. This sounds weird. Beating each other up. Beating each other up in a different way. But then you have this. Now, who would win aside from that terrible thing I just did?
It's at WrestleMania. You got Undertaker. Odds are slightly in his favor.
I mean, if you want to go with the whole like, well, Taker wasn't pinned route, I would totally say Braun Strowman actually beating somebody like Goldberg. I think that would be like a great. I was gonna say rub, but I've already made this question so long at this point. But yeah, it would realistically have to be Undertaker. Just pinning Lesnar. I would love the idea of that because people would not see that coming.
Yeah, would it be awful? I would say probably. Who would win? I would pick The Undertaker just because WrestleMania. I think a reason why a match like Cena versus Rollins versus Lesnar, that triple threat match, was like match of the year candidate, was because of the contrasting styles between everybody in that match. Whereas this, you've kind of got powerhouse and brawler styles. There's not enough difference so that it's just going to be a really slow slogging match where people like Fatal 4-Way still end up with like two guys chilling on the outside for half the time while you get a series of one-on-one matches going on. And I just don't think that slow powerhouse style would work for everyone. You know, you're going to mix in, maybe you have two powerhouse guys, two kind of faster guys to complement the, you know, the contrast that's going on there. So yeah, I don't think it's the most ideal match you want to have, but thank you for the question. Our next question comes from another loving Patreon, Derek Wilson, and he asks, with all the part-time stars likely to participate in this year's WrestleMania, do you think it makes more sense to put them against each other? Lesnar versus Goldberg, Taker versus Cena. Ooh, shots fired? Question mark at Cena. Or
Whoa.
try and spread them out to use them with talent that will be on the shows each week. If the latter, what matches would you be interested in? Lesnar, Goldberg, Taker, Cena, and Jericho.
I think
Interested
this
in
is really
four
the
of
big
those
problem.
listed.
Yeah, but I think that it's a really good question because I don't think people would have as much problem with the part-timers if they got involved, or the people that we don't see as often. Because like John Cena's like different, right? Like he's there for like 2-3 months
He's a
solid, then he's
three-quarters
gone.
timer.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
more than a part-timer.
Exactly. So I would not mind that. I mean, like right now, we could be seeing this where apparently Goldberg's going to have 3 matches, so he may be having a match at like Fastlane or something. If they have a match against somebody completely unrelated to the feud, you avoid the Kevin Owens, Roman Reigns, Chris Jericho triangle where you have the same people wrestle each other, so what's the point? Have a guy like Goldberg wrestle anybody. Like, I don't care. Have him wrestle Titus O'Neil. You had The Rock versus Eric Rowan main event WrestleMania. You can afford Titus O'Neil versus Goldberg, anybody, just to get them involved in the roster. Like, Goldberg showed up on an episode of Up, Up, Down, Down for like a solid second, but even that was cool. The idea, like, you're part of this. You're actually in this.
I think his main point for WrestleMania is we get these spots taken on the card. Is it better to mix Goldberg up with Roman Reigns or something, as opposed to doing Lesnar versus Goldberg? Both winner and loser aren't going to be on Raw the next night, so who gives a damn? You know what I mean? Like, is it better to mix it up a little bit? Or is it easy? Or is it better? Yeah, it's a kind of a good dilemma. Is it better to shuffle them out throughout the card and actually face people who are around? Or is it better to just get them out of the way by having them face each other and then you don't have to deal with it, you know?
I guess the real question, I'm going to answer this question with a question because I think it's the best way to do it, where do you care about the match? Like, forget about the W, the 1, 2, 3, or the submission. Say you put Goldberg versus Roman Reigns. Do you care about the match? Like, do you think it'll be a match you go back to and go, man, that was a really solid match? If the answer is no, then I wouldn't do it. I would rather have it be with the 2 part-timers because, hey, if the match sucks, at least both of them are gone. Get them out of my screen. Now, with a guy like Lesnar, look at what happened with Dean Ambrose. Because we have seen the opposite side of it. We have seen Brock Lesnar take on a non-part-timer. Look at how that turned out. Now, sure, he was, preparing for the UFC and all that, but that alone killed the idea for me of, well, Dean looked like crap. That was a bad match. And now Lesnar's gone. Oof. And it took Dean Ambrose a while to recover. So unfortunately, I think that part-timers have to, as much as we hate it, just be in your little corner, but then have interactions before the show. Say like for the big Mania, whatever, do the spectacle. But then do something in between to at least benefit somebody else, not just your one-on-one opponent.
Yeah, I agree. Like, something like Fastlane can really benefit people if they even did like Goldberg versus Strowman or something like that. In that way, you don't have the pressure of it being on the big stage, so you can maybe make a more controversial move there and do something where maybe Strowman wins by DQ or something if you don't want to have Goldberg be pinned, obviously, before Mania. But yeah, I agree. Otherwise, maybe it's just better to get them out of the way. Especially because they always want to make the part-timers look super strong. But then again, there were surprises. Like, nobody thought that Reigns versus Lesnar was going to actually be good. And it turned out to be one of the better matches at that WrestleMania. So you can be surprised. All right. Thank you for the question. Our next question comes from another Patreon, Bo Segrist, asking, it seems that Baron Corbin is getting a serious push on SmackDown, and Apollo Crews looks like he is getting one with his feud with Ziggler. Who on Raw do you believe is going to get the same kind of push, or who would you like to see get a push? As always, thank you for all the hard work.
Another tough question to answer, because he showcases the problem with Raw, because even though I'm not like a huge fan of the turn with Ziggler, I at least feel like they're going to do something with the guy. Now look at the Sami Zayn versus Braun Strowman feud. To me, like, the feuds that happen on Raw just sort of feel like, well, it benefits this one guy, then the other guy's going to end up doing nothing. So for Raw, the guy for me totally is a guy like Sami Zayn. And I think it sucks that Neville is stuck in the Cruiserweight division, because if you had this Neville just be part of the roster back then, imagine the possibilities. And now it's like he's in this little corner, and he deserves so much more. I'm not a fan of the Cruiserweight division being its own thing, which, you know, we don't really talk about on the show because we only have so much time here.
Alicia
Fox. Oh my. Okay, after this question, did you see the Alicia Fox segment?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Dude,
okay, so save that. Save that. Save that. We got the question. But that's how we close it off.
Yeah.
What do you think about
this?
I got
the
Sammy.
Raw mid-card? Who is in the Raw mid-card? I want to know. You know? I don't know.
I don't know.
We got Rusev and Enzo and Cass, sort of, as the mid-card along with Sami Zayn. That seems like the mid-card.
You could say Jinder.
Jinder, oh, please, come on. Jinder is lucky to be just grasping at the bootstraps of Rusev. As Rusev, you know, he's dragging down the ramp, holding on for dear life as Rusev walks down that ramp for relevancy. So, yeah, the mid-card essentially is this weird thing of, like, Enzo and Cass, even though they're a tag team, with Rusev, and then you got Sami Zayn. And Braun Strowman, I guess, is a kind of a mid-card guy at this point.
He's kind of up there, though.
Yeah.
He got speared by
Goldberg. So who do I want to see get a push? Sami Zayn. But it's like, after he's done with Strowman, who in the blue hell does he work with? I have no idea. Maybe Jericho and Zayn have a cool U.S. title feud or something. You
know, my real answer, anybody from the New Day.
Yes.
Keep the New Day together, but push one of them individually, or two of them. You have different divisions,
Biggie and Strowman,
it doesn't have to
man.
be for the title. Exactly,
Biggie
man.
versus Strowman.
Whoa, huh? Whoa, you're onto something there, man.
Seriously,
Whoa.
the new there's enough tag teams that the tag division can survive. The New Day, you know, Kofi Kingston in a feud, Big E in a feud, like, I think that needs to happen.
Dude, I want to see that right now.
Yes,
you sold me on that idea.
There we go. So thank you, everyone, for those questions. We do want to remind you that you should send us a tweet, #ByteSnack, and let us know what snack everyone should have during the Royal Rumble. We also want to remind you guys, if you want to wear some sweet Byte That merchandise, you can go to whatamaneuver.net to get the official Byte That t-shirt. So thank you guys. Thank you everyone for listening to another edition of the Byte That podcast. As always, if you want more cool content, you can head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast. Hit that subscribe button. If you like our videos, make sure to give them a thumbs up. That really helps, especially since YouTube's gone crazy. But we just hit 6,500 YouTube subscribers, so thank you everyone for the support. It really means a lot to us. You can hit us up on social media @ByteThatCast on Twitter. If you want to send questions to the show, you can send it through Twitter. You can send us an email, bytethatcast@gmail.com. If you want to like our Facebook page, that is facebook.com/ByteThatCast. And also reminding you guys one more time that February 4th, twitch.tv/ByteThat, we're going to do a 12-hour wrestling video game stream that's going to start at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, so make sure to be there for that. Also teasing you guys, next week will be a Royal Rumble giveaway announcement. So stay tuned and be ready for that one.
So much happening. I can't handle
so
it,
much
Ryan.
going on.
I'm going to
so
cry
much going on.
excessively.
Too much. So thank you guys for listening. Enjoy the long weekend, and we'll see you next week. So we totally forgot to talk about the Alicia Fox thing after the show, so this is me cutting in after the fact, saying that, oh my god, Alicia Fox broke my ears when she screamed when Cedric Alexander broke up with her. Literally, like, I've never heard WWE microphones peak as much as they did during that segment, and it was absolutely hilarious, and I loved Alicia's completely over-the-top reaction. So that is my reaction to Alicia Fox.